Luxury bus. Tons of luxury buses. Down here in Church of God, Kada Scott.
Family, friends, local leaders, and community members gathered today in West Oak Lane to honor and remember Kada Scott. Funeral services were held at Mount Airy Church of God in Christ. The 23-year-old disappeared last month. Less than 2 weeks later, investigators found her remains buried behind a vacant school in East Germantown. Keon King has been charged in her murder. Community activists attending today's funeral shared how they hope their attendance today will help Scott's family.
On October 18, 2025, investigators returned to a wooded area behind an abandoned Philadelphia school. They'd already searched this exact location days earlier and found nothing. But an anonymous caller had given them specific instructions. Go back, look again, she's there. This time, their shovels hit something in the shallow ground. Female remains. Within days, DNA testing would confirm these were the remains of a 23-year-old Kada Scott. But the discovery only opened more questions. Her cell phone had pinged at 2 different residential addresses before going silent. Text messages recovered from that night showed Kada had written to her killer, "Kidnap me again." 3 words that proved this wasn't the first time he'd taken her. Surveillance footage captured on October 5th, the day after she was killed, shows 2 people removing what appears to be a human body from a Toyota Camry and carrying it toward the burial site. 2 people, not one. And whoever called in that anonymous tip, they knew exactly where to find her body, which means they knew how it got there. This case isn't just about one man. It's about everyone who watched, everyone who knew, and everyone who stayed silent until it was too late. Welcome to Real True Crime 24/7. To our amazing subscribers, thank you for standing with us. May you and your family stay safe wherever you are. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe, like, and share. We bring you the stories the media never fully told. Today, we're examining a case that exposed not just a predator, but evidence of multiple people involved, and a justice system that had already failed once before. We'll also share details from Kada's homegoing service, where hundreds gathered and city leaders announced a lasting tribute in her name. Before we get into the details, here's what you need to know. Kada Scott was killed approximately 20 minutes after leaving her workplace on October 4th, 2025. Her cell phone stopped transmitting at exactly 10:24 p.m. Second, the man charged with her murder had been caught on video months earlier, stalking another woman, hopping fences, peering into windows. That case, the charges were dropped when witnesses didn't show up to court. Third, cell phone records show Kada's phone pinged at a residential address on Belmar Terrace. Police detained and interviewed 2 women who lived at that house, but both were released without charges. Fourth, surveillance footage from October 5th shows 2 people removing a heavy object consistent with a human body from a Toyota Camry and carrying it toward the area where Kada was buried. Fifth, after Kada's disappearance made headlines, someone posted videos on TikTok with information about the suspect. 4 hours later, those videos were deleted. Then the entire account disappeared. And finally, on November 8th, 2025, hundreds gathered at Kada's homegoing service, including Pennsylvania's governor and Philadelphia's mayor, where the city announced it would create an internship program in her honor. So, here's what we're going to answer today. How did a 21-year-old man with a documented history of stalking, with previous kidnapping charges, with a pattern of asking young women, "Where do you live?" How did he get close enough to a nursing assistant to kill her? Who helped him cover it up? And why haven't they been arrested yet? By the end of this video, you'll know why the district attorney publicly admitted his office could have done more. You'll understand why investigators have video evidence of 2 people moving Kada's body but still haven't made a second arrest. And you'll see why an entire community is demanding answers about the accomplices who remain free. This is the Kada Scott case. Look at this photo. Kada Scott, in her Penn State cheerleading uniform, mid-jump, full of energy. Now look at this one. Her Miss Pennsylvania pageant sash draped across her shoulder, that confident smile. This was a 23-year-old recent graduate with her whole life mapped out ahead of her. But here's what really defined Kada. She chose to spend her nights as a nursing assistant at the Terrace at Chestnut Hill, an assisted living facility. While most people her age were out building social media followings or climbing corporate ladders, Kada was caring for elderly residents who needed her. That choice tells you everything about who she was. Philadelphia Mayor Sherelle Parker would later recall meeting Kada after she competed in the Miss Pennsylvania pageant. According to the mayor, Kada walked up and introduced herself with confidence. That's the kind of young woman she was. October 4th, 2025 started like any other workday. Around 9:30 p.m., Kada kissed her mother goodbye and headed out for her overnight shift. 23 years old. Ambitious. Building the life she'd worked so hard for. Her parents would later describe their daughter as someone who embodied light, kindness, and beautiful spirit. But there's something the family knew that the rest of us didn't. Not yet. In the days before October 4th, Kada had told them she was receiving harassing phone calls. She was upset about it. She'd mentioned it more than once. That detail, those calls, keep that in the front of your mind. During the 2 weeks when Kada was missing, her Aunt Nima Smart spoke to reporters. Her voice was steady, but you could hear the fear underneath. "We are just trying to stay hopeful," she said. "We just want Kada to come home, and we just want some information." Another aunt, Jonna Allen, stood in front of cameras and addressed the city directly. "We know you're standing with us. We know you're praying with us. We know the city of Philadelphia is behind us." The community did show up. Prayer vigils, search parties, social media campaigns. Philadelphia rallied around the Scott family because Kada was one of their own. But here's a detail from that night, October 4th. That's going to matter later. When Kada arrived at work, a coworker saw her on the phone. Kada was angry. According to court records, the coworker overheard Kada say, "I can't believe you're calling me about this." Kada wasn't just annoyed, she was furious. And she was on that phone call right before she disappeared. Hold on to that. We're coming back to it. Now let's talk about Keon King. 21 years old, from Dover, Delaware. But he didn't stay in Dover. He kept coming back to the Philadelphia neighborhood where he used to live. To the teenagers hanging around the local store, King seemed harmless. Just another guy in the neighborhood. He'd smoke weed with them, sell a little on the side, crack jokes. Some of these kids were younger than him, 16, 17 years old, and they thought they were just hanging out with a friend. But King had a habit. When he met young women, he'd ask them a specific question. "Where do you live?" Now, on the surface, that sounds normal, right? When someone's interested in you, they ask where you're from, where you stay. After the case broke, people on social media pointed this out. One comment read, "Asking where she lives is normal. When guys like someone or want to talk to someone, they will ask where they live or be at." Now, had he said, "Hey, I want to unalive her where she lives," now that's a different story. At the time, they saw it being normal. And that's the problem. It did seem normal until you look at the pattern. Let's go back to January 2025, 9 months before Kada disappeared. A woman is standing in front of her house. Suddenly, she's grabbed, forced into a car, and driven away. Inside that car, she's strangled. Somehow she survives. Somehow she escapes. But there's more. This woman had recorded video footage of King before the attack. The video shows him hopping her fence, prowling through her backyard, peering into her windows. She'd felt unsafe enough to hit record, and thank God she did, because that video went viral on TikTok. Millions of views. Everyone in Philadelphia saw it. King gets arrested. The charges are serious: kidnapping, strangulation, stalking. This is the moment the system is supposed to protect the next victim. This is where it's supposed to work. It doesn't. Court date arrives. The victim doesn't show up. The witness doesn't show up. Maybe they were scared. Maybe they moved. Maybe the system didn't protect them enough to make them feel safe to testify. Whatever the reason, the result is the same. Charges dropped. Keon King walks out of that courthouse a free man. Months later, District Attorney Larry Krasner would stand in front of cameras and admit, "We could have done more." But by then, Kada Scott was already dead. So how did King know Kada? Court records show text messages between them. On October 2nd, 2 days before the murder, King texted Kada, "Yo Kada, this my new number." When she asked who dis, he identified himself as Kel. The nature of their relationship remains unclear. He wasn't her boyfriend. The Philadelphia Inquirer specifically reported that the nature and extent of Scott's relationship to King remain unclear. The connection likely came through that same neighborhood network. As one social media comment explained, he hung at the local store selling drugs. Most of them said that's where they saw him at. He used to live around there until his family moved to Delaware, so I guess he still hung around there. That local store became a hub. Kids would gather, King would be there. He was older, had access to weed, seemed cool, and in that environment, he had access to young women who didn't yet understand they were being watched, studied, hunted. Kada Scott was part of that extended social circle, and King had asked her the same question he'd asked others: "Where do you live?" She'd answered him. And on October 4th, 2025, that answer would cost her everything. Investigators started pulling King's phone records. What they found were text messages between him and Kada, proof that they'd been in contact before October 4th. This wasn't a random attack. They knew each other. Deputy Commissioner Frank Venora looked at the evidence early on and made a statement that would prove accurate. He called this a troubling missing person report and said there were some signs that this person wasn't voluntarily missing. Translation: from day one, police knew something was wrong. Then something strange started happening on social media. After Kada's face was all over the news, after her family was begging for information, people who knew King started coming forward. One person in particular posted videos on TikTok. These videos contained information about King, his behavior, things this person had witnessed, details that might matter. 4 hours later, those videos were gone, deleted. Then the entire TikTok account disappeared. Why would someone do that? If you're trying to help find a missing woman, why post information and then scrub it from the internet 4 hours later? What was in those videos that made this person panic? The community started asking questions. One Instagram comment captured what a lot of people were thinking. "Real suspicious that she keeps saying this wasn't enough evidence to go to the police when it clearly shows it was premeditated. She ain't want to involve herself after she basically gave him all the information he needed to commit the crime." She lied in the comments saying her best friend made it all up, but she'd been telling her to go to the cops since she found out. Read that again. According to people watching this unfold online, someone had information before Kada disappeared. This person's own best friend had been telling them to go to the police, but they didn't. And after Kada was found dead, they posted about it, then deleted everything. Meanwhile, the harassment Kada was experiencing got worse. The phone calls increased. She told her family, she told her friends, she was scared, she was angry, but here's the tragedy. Nobody realized just how serious the threat was until she was already gone. Then investigators found the text messages that changed the entire case. One message from Kada to King. 3 words: "Kidnap me again." Stop and think about that word. Again. Not "don't kidnap me," not "leave me alone." The word is again, which means this had already happened before. Kada Scott had been kidnapped by King previously, and she'd survived it, and now he was coming back for her. King's response: "Better be up to." Then he made plans to meet her later that night. This wasn't a crime of passion. This wasn't a sudden decision. This was a man who had already done this to her and was now planning to do it again. Let's build the timeline, hour by hour. October 3rd, late at night. King is on Sprague Street in Philadelphia, specifically the 6600 block. He spots a black Hyundai Accent. He steals it. Court records confirm this theft. That car wasn't randomly chosen. It was the vehicle he needed for what came next. This is premeditation in its clearest form. Now we move to October 4th, the day everything happens. 9:25 p.m. Kada's phone starts ringing. It's King. She doesn't answer. 9:30 p.m. Another call. Then another. Court documents show King called Kada's phone a dozen times between 9:25 p.m. and 10:12 p.m. 12 calls in less than an hour. Kada is at work, trying to start her shift at the assisted living facility. She can't focus. Her phone won't stop. Finally, she answers. Her coworker is nearby and hears the conversation, or at least Kada's side of it. According to court records, Kada says, "I can't believe you're calling me about this." She's furious, she's exhausted, and she's trapped in whatever situation King has created. Then the text exchange happens. "Kidnap me again. Better be up too." People analyzing the phone records later would notice something odd. One Instagram user pointed it out. Outgoing call, then a canceled call? The pattern showed outgoing calls that were immediately canceled. Was someone else monitoring these calls? Was Kada trying to reach out for help but getting stopped? Or was she canceling the calls herself out of fear? Another observer noted something about the people involved. "I don't like her body language. The thing is, she knows how to talk. Maybe they seen she was a successful girl and robbed her together." The theory floating around online was that this wasn't just about King's obsession with Kada. It might have also been about robbery. Kada was educated, employed, building a stable life. She had something worth taking. Then comes 10:24 p.m. Cell phone data tells us exactly what happened. Both phones, Kada's and King's, arrive at the same location at the same time. A parking lot next to Ada H. Lewis Middle School in Germantown. At 10:24 p.m., Kada Scott's phone stops transmitting a signal. Permanently. But here's where the story gets more complicated. Before that phone went dark, it didn't go straight from the terrace at Chestnut Hill to that school parking lot. The phone pinged at a residential address on Belmar Terrace first. Then it moved to another location in Aubrey. Then finally to the school. Why the stops? Who lives at that residential address? And why would Kada's phone be there? Police would later detain and interview 2 women who lived at the Belmar Terrace house. Both were questioned extensively. Both were released without charges. But that doesn't mean they didn't see something. It doesn't mean they don't know something. The community started doing their own investigation. One Instagram comment laid out a theory. He isn't working alone. And my guess is that tip came from Gabby. Kada's phone pinged to a house Gabby was also at, then later Aubrey. They need to go question this girl and charge her with conspiracy. Now, we don't know if that theory is accurate. We don't know who Gabby is or if this person was actually involved. But what we do know is that investigators also believe King didn't act alone. According to sources close to the investigation, Kada Scott was killed approximately 20 minutes after her phone went dark. That puts her time of death around 10:44 p.m. on October 4th. The method, a gunshot to the head. We'll get to that official determination later, but what matters now is what happened next. The stolen black Hyundai Accent was caught on surveillance footage that night, parked near a recreation center close to the burial site. King's phone places him in that exact area during the exact time frame when Kada was killed. But here's the new evidence that changes everything. Surveillance footage from October 5th, the day after the murder, shows 2 people removing what appears to be a heavy object consistent with a human body from a Toyota Camry and carrying it toward the playground area near Ada H. Lewis Middle School. 2 people, not 1. Which means someone helped Keon King that night. Someone assisted in either transporting the body, the burial, or both. Someone else has blood on their hands, and that person is still out there. Let's reconstruct October 4th, 2025, minute by minute. 10:24 p.m. Cell phone data locks in both devices, Kada's phone and King's phone, arriving together at a parking lot next to Ada H. Lewis Middle School. They're in the same place at the same time. There's no question about that. 20 minutes later, around 10:44 p.m., medical evidence suggests Kada Scott is shot in the head. The medical examiner would later confirm this as the cause of death, but in that moment, in that parking lot, Kada's life ends with a single gunshot. 23 years old. A whole future erased in seconds. But the crime doesn't end there. October 5th. The next day, surveillance cameras capture something critical. 2 people are seen removing what appears to be a heavy object consistent with a human body from a Toyota Camry. They carry it toward the playground area near the school. 2 people, working together, moving Kada's body to its burial site. Court documents confirm that investigators have this video evidence. It's not speculation. It's not theory. It's captured on camera. Now let's talk about those phone pings, because they tell us something crucial. Kada's phone didn't travel in a straight line from the terrace at Chestnut Hill to that school parking lot. The data shows stops along the way. First, her phone pings at a residential address on Belmar Terrace, someone's house. Then it moves to another location in Aubrey, then finally to the school where she's killed. So what does that mean? 3 possibilities. 1. Kada was physically moved to multiple locations before being taken to the school. 2. Someone was moving her phone separately from her body, trying to create a false trail. Or 3. Multiple people were involved at multiple locations, coordinating this attack. Any way you look at it, this was organized. This wasn't chaos. This was planned. Police tracked King's phone to the Belmar Terrace address. They went to that house. They detained 2 women who lived there. Those women were interviewed extensively. Then they were released. No charges filed. But questions remain. What did they see? What did they hear? Did they help? Or were they just witnesses who stayed silent? The stolen black Hyundai Accent shows up on surveillance footage that night. Cameras catch it parked near a recreation center, and that recreation center is close, very close, to the wooded area where Kada's body would eventually be found. King's phone records place him in that same area during the same time frame. The car, the phone data, the location, it all lines up. But King makes a mistake, or maybe he panics. October 7th, 3 days after Kada's murder, that black Hyundai Accent is discovered. It's been set on fire, deliberately torched in an attempt to destroy any evidence inside it. DNA, fingerprints, blood stains, anything that could tie King to the crime. The fire doesn't erase the evidence. It just adds another charge, arson. And it tells investigators they're looking for someone who knows he left traces behind. Mid-October, about a week and a half after Kada disappeared, police get a lead. They find some of her belongings scattered near Ada H. Lewis Middle School. Her phone case, her glasses, a bank card, personal items that shouldn't be there unless something terrible happened. Officers search the heavily wooded area behind the school. They bring in search teams. They comb through the trees, the brush, the uneven ground. They're looking for a body. They find nothing. The search concludes. The items are collected as evidence, but there's no sign of Kada herself. The family is still waiting. The community is still praying. But investigators have nothing concrete. Then, days later, someone makes a phone call. An anonymous tip. The caller doesn't leave a name, doesn't explain how they know what they know. But the tip is very specific. The exact words, "Go back, she's there, look again." Think about what that means. This person knows the police already searched that location. This person knows the search came up empty. And this person is telling them to go back because Kada's body is there and they somehow know it. How does an anonymous caller have that information? There are only a few explanations. They were there when she was buried. They witnessed the burial. Or someone told them exactly where the body was hidden. And based on the surveillance footage showing 2 people moving the body, this anonymous caller might be one of those 2 people, or someone who knows them. October 18th, 2025. Police return to Ada H. Lewis Middle School. They go back into those same woods, and this time they dig in the same area they'd already searched. This time, they find her. A shallow grave. Female human remains, partially concealed by dirt and debris. The decomposition makes visual identification impossible, so investigators move quickly to collect DNA samples. Those samples are compared against DNA from Kada's parents. Within days, the confirmation comes back. The remains belong to Kada Scott. Deputy Commissioner Frank Venor had said from the very beginning that this case felt wrong. He'd told reporters this was a troubling missing person report, and that police saw some signs that this person wasn't voluntarily missing. He was right. Kada Scott never left voluntarily. She was taken, murdered, and buried in a location her killer thought no one would find. But someone knew exactly where she was. And 2 weeks into the investigation, that person finally made the call. The question investigators are still asking: why did they wait? Why not call immediately? And what else do they know that they haven't told anyone yet? Once Kada's body was identified, investigators had everything they needed to build a murder case. Let's look at the evidence piece by piece. First, those text messages. "Kidnap me again." 3 words that became the foundation of the entire prosecution. This wasn't speculation or theory. This was Kada's own words proving that King had abducted her before. It established pattern. It established history. It established that King was a threat Kada already knew about, and that threat had now turned fatal. Second, the cell phone data. Both phones arriving at the school parking lot at exactly 10:24 p.m. Kada's phone pinging at that Belmar Terrace address beforehand. The movement between multiple locations. This wasn't just evidence of King's guilt. This was a digital map suggesting other people were involved. Every ping, every location, every timestamp pointed to coordination. Third, surveillance footage. That stolen black Hyundai Accent captured on camera near the recreation center, right next to where Kada's body was buried, during the exact window when she was killed. The car tied King directly to the crime scene. Fourth, and most critically, the October 5th surveillance video showing two people removing what appears to be a body from a Toyota Camry and carrying it toward the burial site. But then the investigation took an unexpected turn into social media. After Kada's disappearance hit the news, people who knew King started posting online. TikTok videos appeared with details about his behavior, his patterns, things he'd said or done, information that could have been useful to investigators. 4 hours later, those videos were gone, deleted. Then the entire account vanished. The public erupted. One Instagram comment captured the frustration. She deleted all the videos 4 hours later, only to end up deleting the entire TikTok account. Investigate, do your jobs. People weren't just angry about Kada's death, they were angry about what looked like a cover-up. Why post information and then erase it unless you're worried about what it reveals? Then another issue surfaced. Questions about the January case, the one where King's charges were dropped. One comment challenged the district attorney directly. Larry Krasner also lied about the bail appeal. There was ample amount of time. The claim was that King could have been kept in custody, that the bail process had been mishandled, and that there was time to prevent him from walking free. If true, that meant Kada's death was entirely preventable. The community wasn't just grieving. They were investigating. They were demanding accountability. They were connecting dots that law enforcement seemed to have missed. Some people tried to add context. One comment explained the social dynamics. A lot of them girls rode around with him, chilled with him while smoking his drugs. Weed. They said it at the news press conference. Kada and Keon knew each other. They have evidence of that. Through text messages, that's how he became someone they wanted to talk to. This painted a picture of how King operated, using drugs and social situations to gain trust, to get close to young women, to make himself seem harmless. It worked until it didn't. Another comment referenced what happened when someone finally did contact detectives with information. She said when she finally called the detective, because that's who you call to give information to, she said that wasn't really nothing. Basically, a lawyer will eat that up, because that's what men and women do. That won't hold in court as evidence. The implication: someone had information, but was told it wasn't enough to matter. So they didn't push it, and now Kada was dead. As for King's mistakes, they were everywhere. Burning the car just added arson charges and proved consciousness of guilt. Using his own phone created a perfect digital trail. And not working alone meant there were witnesses. People who could flip, people who could talk. He thought he was smart enough to get away with it. He wasn't. Mid-October, Keon King is arrested. The initial charges are kidnapping. Police have enough to hold him based on the evidence that Kada didn't leave voluntarily. But as investigators dig deeper, the charges multiply. Arson for the burned car, conspiracy because of the evidence showing multiple people involved, tampering with evidence for attempting to destroy the Hyundai. October 22nd, the medical examiner releases the official ruling. Cause of death is a gunshot wound to the head. Manner of death, homicide. That ruling opens the door for the most serious charge of all, first-degree murder. And the charges keep coming. Robbery, theft, abuse of a corpse, obstruction of justice. Every crime King committed, from the moment he stole that Hyundai to the moment he helped bury Kada's body, gets added to the indictment. A judge reviews the evidence and makes a decision. Keon King will be held without bail. He's not going anywhere. But here's what makes this case even more significant. The DA's office does something unusual. They revive the January 2025 kidnapping case. Remember, those charges had been dropped when the victim and witness didn't show up to court. Now, 9 months later, they're brought back. Why? Because prosecutors can now show a pattern. King didn't just kill Kada Scott in a moment of rage. He'd been escalating for months. The January victim survived. Kada didn't. That progression matters in court. King's defense attorney, Shaka Johnson, is contacted for comment. He offers none. When the evidence is this strong, there's not much a defense attorney can say publicly. But the investigation isn't finished. Prosecutor Ashley Totzalowski makes a statement that changes the entire scope of the case. We have reason to believe other people may have been involved after the fact. She adds that the matter is very much still being investigated. Translation: they know King didn't act alone. They have that surveillance video showing 2 people moving the body. They have the phone pings to the Belmar Terrace address. They've interviewed the 2 women who lived there. And they're building cases against accomplices right now. King's preliminary hearing was scheduled for November 10th. That date has come and gone, and the case moves forward toward trial. But this case is far from over, because there are still questions no one has answered. Who made that anonymous tip? How did they know exactly where Kada's body was buried when police had already searched and found nothing? Were they one of the 2 people on that surveillance video? Who is the second person caught on camera moving the body? Prosecutors have the video. They know there were 2 people. Why hasn't that person been arrested yet? What was in those deleted TikTok videos? What information was posted for 4 hours and then scrubbed from the internet? And why? What did the 2 women who live at the Belmar Terrace address see or hear? Why were they detained, interviewed, and then released? Are they witnesses, or were they involved? And the biggest question: when will conspiracy charges be filed against the accomplices? The community is watching. They're not letting this go, and they're making it clear. Everyone involved needs to be held accountable, not just the person who pulled the trigger. After Kada's remains were identified, her parents released a statement. Their words were simple, but they carried the weight of unimaginable grief. It is with profound sadness that we share the tragic passing of our beloved daughter, Kada Scott. Our hearts are shattered, yet we are deeply grateful for the outpouring of love, support, and prayers from people across the nation and around the world. Our hearts are broken beyond words. Broken beyond words. That's what it means to lose a child to violence, when language itself fails to capture the pain. On Saturday, November 8, 2025, hundreds gathered at Mount Airy Church of God in Christ on Ogons Avenue in Philadelphia for Kada's homegoing service. The funeral was open to the public, with seating on a first-come, first-served basis. The family asked guests to wear pink, Kada's favorite color, so that the service would feel like a celebration of life, rather than just a mourning of death. And the people came. Hundreds of them. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro was there. Philadelphia Mayor Sherelle Parker was there. City and state lawmakers filled the pews. But more importantly, friends, family, and complete strangers who'd been moved by Kada's story showed up to honor her. Mayor Parker spoke at the service. She recalled meeting Kada after she competed in the Miss Pennsylvania pageant. According to the mayor, Kada walked right up to her, introduced herself with confidence. That's the kind of young woman she was. Bold, unafraid, present. One of her friends, Prey Korimode, spoke through tears. To see this happen to someone so close to me and not understand why it happened, such a senseless, foolish crime. Senseless. That word kept coming up. Because there was no reason good enough, no explanation that could justify why Kada Scott had to die. Desiree Whitfield, who helped organize one of the vigils, spoke at the service. We know that Kada was loved, and she was. The packed church proved it. Minister Jonna Allen, one of Kada's aunts, addressed the crowd with words that captured what Kada's death meant to the community. When tragedy took Kada from us, the city shook. Communities once distant came together. People saw their daughters, their sisters, their goddaughters in Kada. That's the truth. Kada's story resonated because she could have been anyone's daughter, anyone's friend, anyone's neighbor. Bishop J. Lewis Felton put it even more powerfully. We cannot celebrate the black woman without celebrating Kada Scott, and we cannot celebrate Kada Scott without celebrating the black woman. Her aunt, Kelly Scott Dreyer, read a letter aloud that left hardly a dry eye in the church. The world has dimmed in color. May the winds of love blow softly in your ear. I love you, I miss you, and I wish you were here. There was dancing at the service, joyful music, rounds of applause celebrating who Kada was. But there were also tears. Plenty of them. Because grief and celebration can exist in the same space when you're honoring a life taken too soon. After the service, Kada's gold casket was loaded into a white, horse-drawn carriage and escorted through the streets of Philadelphia to Chelton Hill Cemetery, where she was laid to rest. But the family wanted to turn their grief into something bigger. They made an announcement about the GoFundMe that had been set up during the search. All donations will be used to cover Kada's funeral, and any remaining balance will be donated to the Black and Missing Foundation in Kada's name. This is how you honor a life. You make sure the tragedy doesn't end with just one family. You make sure other families get the resources, the attention, the urgency that missing Black women so often don't receive. And Mayor Sherelle Parker made her own commitment. She announced that the city of Philadelphia would create an internship program in honor of Kada Scott, designed to help young women from high school up to age 22 get work experience in city government. Kada's legacy will now directly impact the lives of young women who will walk through doors she helped open. They'll intern in city offices, learn about government, build skills, and create futures. All because Kada Scott's name will be attached to that opportunity. State Representative Andre Carroll stood before the community and made a promise. He said the community's persistent advocacy was the reason the world now knows Kada Scott. And he pledged to work to ensure that no family ever has to endure such heartbreaking loss again. Those are powerful words. But the community wasn't waiting for politicians to act. They were acting themselves. City Council member Anthony Phillips set up a collection drive, and Philadelphia responded. Food, gift cards, essential items, people showed up daily to support the Scott family in any way they could. Neighbors and complete strangers brought what they had to give. Online, people weren't just mourning. They were investigating. They were calling out the deleted social media accounts. They were questioning why certain people hadn't been arrested yet. They were demanding that everyone involved face consequences, not just Keon King. The message was clear. Hold everyone accountable, not just the person who pulled the trigger, but everyone who helped, everyone who knew, everyone who stayed silent. Let's step back and look at the system failures that led to Kada's death. January 2025, King is charged with kidnapping and strangulation. The victim doesn't show up to court. The witness doesn't show up. Charges dropped. King walks free. There are also allegations that the bail appeal process was mishandled, that there was time to keep King in custody, but it didn't happen. District Attorney Larry Krasner later admits, we could have done more. And here's the part that still haunts everyone. There was a viral video of King stalking that January victim. Millions of people saw it. Law enforcement saw it. Yet King still had access to potential victims. He was still free to hang around that neighborhood store, still free to contact young women, still free to ask, where do you live? How many times do we see this exact pattern? Charges dropped. Victims too scared to testify. The system moves on, and the predator escalates. Kada Scott didn't have to die. The system had a chance to stop King in January. They didn't take it. But there's another uncomfortable question we need to ask. What about the people around King? What about the people who had information before October 4th? If you know someone is being harassed, do you speak up? If you have information that could save a life, even if it seems small, even if you're not sure it matters, do you report it? And if you post that information online, then delete it 4 hours later. What does that tell us? What about the two people captured on surveillance video moving Kada's body? One of them is King. Who's the other? And why haven't they been arrested? What about the two women who were detained and questioned? What did they see? What did they know? Were they involved, or were they just too afraid to speak up when it mattered? One comment tried to provide context about the environment King operated in. Plus, they all lived in the same area. He hung at the local store selling drugs. Most of them said that's where they saw him at. He used to live around there until his family moved to Delaware. So it was a tight-knit community. People knew each other, which makes the silence even harder to understand. When everyone knows everyone, how does something this terrible happen without more people speaking up? Here are the lessons from Kada's case. Trust your instincts when someone asks questions that feel off. Even something as simple as, "Where do you live?" Context matters. Pattern matters. If you're being harassed, document everything immediately. Screenshots, recordings, dates, times. Build your evidence before it's too late. If someone tells you they're getting threatening phone calls, believe them. Don't wait until it escalates. Don't assume they're overreacting. Previous violence is the best predictor of future violence. If someone has hurt people before, they will likely hurt people again. The January victim survived. Kada didn't. That escalation was predictable. And finally, the system only works when people participate. Witnesses have to show up. Victims need protection and support to testify, and communities need to speak up when they see something wrong, not delete their accounts and disappear. So where does everyone stand now? Tian King is held without bail in a Philadelphia jail, awaiting trial for first-degree murder, kidnapping, robbery, theft, abuse of a corpse, obstruction of justice, arson, conspiracy, and tampering with evidence. His preliminary hearing has passed, and the case moves toward trial. The investigation into potential accomplices remains active. Prosecutors have made it clear they believe others were involved, and they're building those cases. That surveillance video showing two people moving the body isn't going away. Someone else will be held accountable. Kada's family is channeling their grief into advocacy. Through their partnership with the Black and Missing Foundation, they're working to make sure other families don't face the same nightmare. And through the city's internship program in Kada's name, young women will have opportunities they might not have had otherwise. And the community? They're refusing to let Kada Scott be forgotten. They're keeping pressure on investigators. They're demanding answers to the questions that still haven't been resolved. They're making noise until justice is fully served. Kada Scott was a cheerleader, a Penn State graduate, a nursing assistant who spent her nights caring for elderly patients who needed her. Her parents described her as someone who had light, kindness, and beautiful spirit. At her funeral, hundreds gathered wearing pink, her favorite color, to celebrate that light, even as they mourned the darkness that extinguished it. That's who she was. But she also had someone in her life who wouldn't let go. Someone who had done this to another woman before. Someone the justice system failed to stop when they had the chance. And she may have had people around her who knew pieces of what was happening, who saw warning signs, heard troubling things, noticed patterns, but didn't put it all together until it was too late. Or worse, people who helped cover it up after she was already dead. Those people are still out there, and investigators are still building cases against them. If you're experiencing harassment, stalking, or threats, contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE. That's 1-800-799-7233. You don't have to wait until it gets worse. You don't have to handle it alone. And if you have information about this case or any case, speak up. Call the police. Call detectives. That small piece of information you think doesn't matter? It could be the detail that saves someone's life. It could be the tip that finally brings an accomplice to justice. Now I want to hear from you. Should the person who deleted those TikTok videos be investigated? What about the two people seen on that surveillance video? Why hasn't the second person been arrested? What responsibility do we have when we know something that might be important? Leave your thoughts in the comments, but please remember, this is a real family grieving a real loss. Keep it respectful. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Real True Crime 24/7, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a case. Rest in peace, Kada Scott. Your light was taken far too soon, but your memory will push for change. The internship program bearing your name will open doors for young women for years to come, and your story will remind us all to speak up before it's too late. And to those who know more than they've said, investigators are still watching. That surveillance video doesn't lie. The phone records don't lie. The truth always finds its way out. Always. Next week, we're covering the case of a woman who disappeared from a grocery store parking lot in broad daylight. The security footage captured something no one expected to see, and it changed everything investigators thought they knew. Until then, stay safe out there.